The year is 2025. The world has changed in ways unimaginable just a few years ago. Technology has advanced, societies have evolved, and yet, some things remain eerily familiar. The White House, once a symbol of hope and democracy, is now a cauldron of chaos. The storm clouds that gather above it are not just meteorological but metaphorical, representing the turmoil within. President Trump, a tempestuous figure, has returned to power, and the nation braces itself for a tumultuous ride. His speeches are fiery, his expressions intense, and his presence polarizing. The country is divided, with supporters and detractors clashing at every turn. Today the storm rages within the hallowed halls of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, leaving an indelible mark on the very fabric of American society. The decisions made here will ripple across the nation, affecting millions of lives. The day began like any other, with whispers of discontent swirling in the corridors of power. Staffers exchanged nervous glances, aware that something monumental was on the horizon. But as the hours wore on, a series of events unfolded, each more shocking than the last. The clock seemed to tick faster, each second bringing new developments that would shape the course of history, culminating in a maelstrom of political and economic upheaval. The stock market plummeted, protests erupted outside the White House, and chaos reigned in the streets of Washington, D.C. The nation's capital was a powder keg, ready to explode. The nation watched, transfixed, as the drama unfolded, a collective gasp escaping its lips. Families gathered around their televisions, eyes glued to the screens, hearts pounding with anticipation and dread. The events of this day would be etched into the annals of history, a testament to a time of unprecedented turmoil and change. At the heart of the storm was Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, her composure cracking under the weight of 1,000 burning questions. The press corps, a pack of wolves sensing blood, peppered her with inquiries about the president's latest pronouncements, each one more outlandish than the last. Leavitt, her voice strained, attempted to defend the indefensible. She denied knowledge of Trump's calls to impeach judges who dared to challenge his authority. She stumbled over questions about the administration's continued defiance of court orders. The veneer of control, so carefully cultivated, began to crumble, revealing the raw panic beneath. The president, never one to shy away from a fight, unleashed a torrent of abuse on anyone who dared to question his actions. His rhetoric was fiery and relentless, aimed at discrediting and intimidating those who stood in his way. He used every opportunity to lash out, whether it was during a public rally or through his social media accounts. His words were not just harsh, they were calculated to instill fear and silence dissent. The atmosphere was charged with tension, as his supporters echoed his sentiments, creating a hostile environment for anyone perceived as an opponent. Judges, journalists, even members of his own party became targets of his ire. No one was safe from his verbal onslaughts. The judiciary, which he saw as a barrier to his agenda, was a frequent target. He accused judges of being biased and unfit to serve, undermining public confidence in the legal system. Journalists, tasked with holding power to account, were branded as enemies of the people. His own party members, if they showed any sign of disloyalty, were swiftly condemned and ostracized. The president's strategy was clear: isolate and attack anyone who posed a threat to his authority. His weapon of choice, the social media platform Truth Social, where his words, unfiltered and unhinged, found a receptive audience among his loyal followers. On this platform, he could bypass traditional media and speak directly to his base. His posts were often inflammatory, designed to provoke and rally his supporters. The immediacy of social media allowed him to respond to events in real time, keeping his followers constantly engaged and mobilized. The echo chamber of Truth Social amplified his message, creating a feedback loop that reinforced his views and further polarized the public. He labeled Judge Boasberg, who had dared to halt the deportation of certain non-citizens, an Obama judge, and called for his immediate impeachment. This was not an isolated incident but part of a broader pattern of attacking judges who ruled against him. By personalizing his attacks, he sought to delegitimize their decisions and portray them as politically motivated. His calls for impeachment were a stark reminder of his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. The judiciary, a cornerstone of democracy, was under siege from a president who viewed it as an obstacle rather than a check on his power. He banned the Associated Press from White House briefings for their refusal to adopt his preferred terminology, a blatant assault on the freedom of the press. This move was part of a larger effort to control the narrative and suppress dissenting voices. By excluding critical media outlets, he aimed to create an environment where only favorable coverage was allowed. The ban sent a chilling message to other journalists: fall in line or face exclusion. The freedom of the press, a fundamental pillar of democracy, was being eroded by a president who saw it as a threat to his authority. The implications of these actions were profound, as they undermined the very principles upon which the nation was founded. As the political drama played out, the markets reacted with predictable alarm. The Dow Jones plunged, the Nasdaq took a nosedive, and the once mighty Tesla, now a shadow of its former self, saw its stock price plummet by a staggering 50%. Investors, spooked by the uncertainty and instability, fled for the exits. Elon Musk, the enigmatic CEO of Tesla, watched as his empire crumbled around him. Once hailed as a visionary, he was now seen as a liability, his erratic behavior and close ties to the Trump administration alienating investors and consumers alike. Major investors, their confidence shaken, dumped their Tesla holdings, sending shockwaves through the tech industry. Section 5. Boasberg's Brazen Stand, Deportation Defiance. Judge Boasberg, a beacon of judicial independence amidst the gathering storm, refused to be intimidated by Trump's threats. He stood by his ruling, ordering the administration to halt the deportation of non-citizens who had been unjustly targeted. His defiance, a rare act of courage in an era of political cowardice, sent a clear message. The rule of law still mattered. The administration, however, remained defiant. Citing the Alien Enemies Act, a relic of a bygone era, they continued to round up and deport individuals, many of whom had committed no crime other than seeking a better life for themselves and their families. Section 6. The legal battle lines are drawn. The stage was set for a legal showdown of epic proportions. The air was thick with anticipation as both sides prepared their arguments, each believing they held the moral high ground. The courtroom, a place of solemnity and justice, would now become the arena for a battle that could shape the future of the nation. Lawsuits were filed, injunctions were issued, and the courts became the battleground for a fight over the very soul of America. The legal teams, composed of some of the brightest minds in the country, worked tirelessly, poring over documents and preparing for what could be the trial of the century. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was palpable, with reporters from every major network vying for the latest scoop. On one side stood those who believed in the Constitution, the rule of law, and the fundamental rights of all people. They were a diverse group, united by a common belief in justice and democracy. Their signs and chants echoed the sentiments of a nation yearning for fairness and equality. They saw this legal battle as a pivotal moment, a chance to reaffirm the principles upon which the country was founded. On the other stood Trump and his allies, determined to cling to power at any cost. They argued that the election had been stolen, that the will of the people had been subverted. Their supporters, fervent and vocal, rallied outside the courthouse, waving flags and chanting slogans. For them, this was not just a legal battle, but a fight for the very identity of the nation. The battle lines were drawn, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the outcome remained uncertain. As the sun set over the government buildings, casting long shadows on the steps of the courthouse, the tension was palpable. Both sides knew that the decisions made in this courtroom could have far-reaching consequences, not just for the present, but for generations to come. The nation held its breath, waiting to see which side would prevail in this high-stakes game of legal chess. Families gathered around their televisions watching the news unfold, their faces etched with concern and hope. The outcome of this legal battle would not only determine the immediate future, but could also set a precedent for how the country would handle such disputes in the years to come. The world watched and history was in the making. Section 7. Policy Chaos, a Nation on Edge. As the legal battles raged on, the Trump administration continued to sow chaos and division with its policies, from proposed changes to the Social Security claims process to the halting of Agent Orange cleanup efforts in Vietnam. Each decision seemed designed to appeal to the president's base while alienating vast swaths of the population. The president's executive order threatening to withhold education funding from states that allowed transgender girls to participate in sports sparked outrage and protests across the country. The arrest of Maria Margarita Rojas in Texas for providing illegal abortions sent shockwaves through the pro-choice movement. Section 8. The broader implications. A democracy in peril. The events of this tumultuous day sent shockwaves far beyond the halls of Washington, D.C. They exposed the fragility of American democracy, the ease with which it could be undermined by a president willing to exploit its weaknesses. They revealed a nation deeply divided, its citizens pitted against each other by a leader who thrived on chaos and division. The world watched in disbelief, wondering how a nation once seen as a beacon of hope and freedom had fallen so far so fast. The American experiment, it seemed, was hanging by a thread. Section 9. The future unfolds, a glimpse into the abyss. As the dust settled on this day of reckoning, the future remained uncertain. Would America find a way to heal its divisions and restore its democracy? Or would it succumb to the forces of authoritarianism and division? Only time would tell. One thing was clear, the events of this day would cast a long shadow over the nation's psyche. The scars of this tumultuous period would take years, if not decades, to heal, and the world would never look at America the same way again.